Hello there. I'm Jacqueline Hannah with Food Co-op Initiative, and you're joining us for our live webinar called Messaging 101. What is messaging for startups and how can we do it effectively? Thanks for joining us today. Next slide. So, a little bit about Food Co-op Initiative. We are the only national nonprofit that works just to support startup food co-ops all over the country. We're currently providing support and resources to over 140 communities nationwide, from Sitka, Alaska to Boston, Massachusetts, and beyond. We've helped over 79 food co-ops get their doors open in our 10 years of existence and are celebrating our 10th anniversary here at Food Co-op Initiative. So a little bit more about us. We exist, again, to support startup food co-ops at all stages of development, whether you're having that first conversation around a kitchen table about the possibility of maybe talking about starting a food co-op to if you're opening your doors next week. We're here to support you through all the stages, and you can call us at any time. Our phone number is 844-324-2667 or .coop. You can sign up for our mailing list and take a look at our extensive library of resources at our website, www.foodcoopinitiative.coop.coop. Our support and resources are always free. So we'd also like to take a quick moment to thank our sponsors who make it possible for us to do this support work with you today. We have some terrific sponsors all over the food co-op world that make it possible for us to support startup food co-ops because they believe in the future of food co-ops and of startup food co-ops. We want to thank them for making our work possible with you and for making it possible for the future co-ops all across the country like you to get their doors open. All right, a little before we get started, a little housekeeping. These webinars work better when you participate, so we'd love to hear your questions and comments throughout the presentation today. You can always email us. Email your questions to info@fci.coop. Mary Stennis-Wilborn, one of our staff members here at FCI, she's waving to you right now. She will actually be receiving those emails from you and getting those questions to me throughout the presentation. Most will be answered at the end. But absolutely send them anytime when they occur to you. We also, you can call us at the phone number that we listed before. Our number, again, is 844-324-2667. And you'll also see at the bottom of your screen throughout my presentation reminders of where you can send those questions. All right, let's get started. So we're here today to talk about messaging, and it's a really important thing for startups and one that we maybe don't always talk about a lot. We hear from startups that they're doing this work to grow ownership, they're doing this work to find a site, they're doing this work to raise money, but maybe haven't combined all of those things together into a messaging plan for how we talk to our owners. So to back up a little bit, we're going to talk a little bit about brand. And I can tell that my fonts didn't transition. I apologize. We'll get a PDF version of this up on our website after the presentation, which will have the right fonts, but you think you can tell what some things say here. So really what we're talking about in co-ops as a co-op is identity, which is often called brand in the non-co-op world. So brand is who the organization is, what it does, and what niche it fills for a for-profit corporation. And for a food co-op, it's who the org is and what we do and what need we meet. A co-op exists to meet a need of a community that it wants served and met. So rather than creating a niche to sell a product, we are selling a product to meet a need, existing need in a community. So this translates into, in a for-profit corporation, marketing, or as I like to call it in co-ops, telling our story. So marketing is the creating of markets to sell a product, and is what a company actively does to create those markets for their product and to sell more of that product. So just to give an example, the product might not already have, there might not be a need for the product in marketing, like high-heel tennis shoes. There probably was no one who needed those. but a market was created for those, and people enjoy them, but it wasn't created to meet a need necessarily. In co-ops, we actively do and tell our story of what the co-op provides, building connection to the co-op identity and attracting new people to the co-op who want that need met. So again, we're not creating a market for a product, we're creating a place to obtain a product to meet a need the community has identified. Of course, the way we do this is almost identical in a lot of ways. At a conventional food co-op, your open sales, samplings, giveaways, social media, that's startups use that all the time, classes, events, ads, branded product, and that means your t-shirts with your co-op's name and your yard signs and your water bottles, loyalty programs, and more. So identity building for a startup food co-op or any food co-op looks a lot like corporate branding. And I do occasionally find that as co-ops, we're a little resistant to really understanding the full importance of identity and messaging. And I think that comes from, wait a minute, marketing. Isn't that an evil word? Isn't that un-co-op? So I wanted to talk for a moment about the difference. Maybe you feel that way about marketing. Certainly, I know I get sick of marketing sometimes, seeing billboards and ads everywhere. But what we're trying to do is to communicate in a very noisy world about a need that we believe the community has that we would like to help them meet and help them give us input on how to meet. So we're going to talk about how to do that through something called messaging. So a little more again. Again, it's what niche it fills for a brand, and then what need does it meet when it's our identity. So, sorry, I forgot to tell them before the slide there. So we'll jump into messaging now, which is the tool we use to build identity. So marketing grows markets, and storytelling strengthens identity and attracts people to the identity, which is what we're trying to do. When we're trying to grow ownership and trying to start a food co-op, we're trying to attract people to the vision and identity that we've developed. And as a startup, your identity is everything and how you communicate it. You don't have a store to show them. You don't have a product to sell. The idea that you're attracting people to, the thing you're selling, is the vision and identity of your co-op. So we need to do that well. How do we do it? And we do that through messaging. Okay, so one of our tools to attract people to our identity and tell our story is messaging. It's the most important tool. And messaging has three core parts. It has our stakeholders, which is our target audience. It has our core messages, and it has our vehicles. And we're going to talk about all three today and how you use them as a startup. So let's start with the core messages, the central piece of messaging. Our core messages are what are the things we're going to communicate. What are the most important things? Now, they have so much to communicate as a startup. You have so many things you want to tell your community about your values, about the project, about investing in the project, about what it'll accomplish when it's open. How to decide what to communicate. And often in observing startup food co-ops and how they communicate through newsletters and social media, I see some awesome stuff. But I also see some communicating that's pretty, the messages can feel almost a little random. It can be the sharing of a recipe one day, the next day something about Monsanto and GMOs, and then the next day about an event. And these things can weave together really well as part of your identity if you're making sure that everything you communicate is part of one of the core messages you want to communicate. Now, every co-op needs to develop their own core messages. These are my suggested ones for startups, though. You never want to see more than 3 to 4 core messages. And the top ones that I see again and again, the messages we need to communicate to our communities and to our owners to get those co-ops open are 4 things. The first one are ends or mission. Many food co-ops, once you're open, if you're using policy governance, call this their ends. You might call it your vision or your mission. And here I actually just showed the 4 bullet points of the vision or mission of actually my home co-op, Common Ground Food Co-op here in Urbana, Illinois. And notice how clear and concise they are. They're written a little broader than that if you actually saw all 4 of our vision end statements, but I can express them that quickly. There are 3 or 4 quick bullet points that really encapsulate our vision and what we're trying to do for the community. So you want to have your vision boiled down into 3 or 4 very quick points under your core messages. Whatever we want to communicate our vision, and our vision is X, Y, Z. in this case, vibrant and inclusive community, educational resource to the community, that we strengthen the cooperative movement, and that we build a more robust food shed. Then we have our vision. Next core message is a startup. Ownership, 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 ownership. How to become an owner. That more owners mean that we can open our store, that we're closer to opening our store, that it's locally owned and that you're the one who owns it. That transparency is about ownership. Democracy is a big piece of ownership. Elections, your board, and board representation. So everything about growing ownership, why ownership matters, how I become an owner, and then how the democratic process of being an owner of a co-op works and why it matters. That's the second core message. So we have our vision, ownership. Then we have, we're building a store. And what this is a little bit more of like the pieces of the 3 and 4 development model. And if you haven't run into the 3 and 4 yet, development model for startup food co-ops, please go to our website, again, www.foodcoopinitiative.coop, and learn all about this really powerful model for how we develop co-ops. But the building the store column is really about the things you're doing in that 3 and 4 development model. So it's about the development stages, like here's where we are in development and here's where we're going. It's everything from architects to store design to owner loans to we're working with banks to we're hiring staff, we're getting together a construction team, anything that is a concrete step to building that store that your co-op is attempting to open and get open. So building the store and communicating about the store. So we're communicating about vision, we're communicating about ownership, we're communicating about build the store and how we're doing that and what the steps are. The last core message is a possibility. You could stick to those 3 and have some powerful core messages, but the last one would be grocery store. As I put on here, you can't say this enough. I'm kind of amazed how often that really effective communicating startup co-ops will get to a certain point, maybe 400 owners, 500 owners, midpoint in their development, and they will call me and say, we're starting to hear, is this a CSA? Is this a food bank? Is this a charity? Is this a farmer's market? And you might have run into these questions and the frustration of trying to say again and again and again what you're doing. And so actually, mature co-ops run into this too. My co-op has been open for over 40 years, and we still get phone calls saying, is this open to the public? Is this a food bank? And so we have to keep communicating that co-op means grocery store. So don't stop saying grocery store, grocery store, grocery store. Some ways you can talk about the fact that you're starting a grocery store, show examples, photos from and the beautiful photos from the inside of other food co-ops, say this is what we're working toward. Talk about product standards. So people realize you're selling products, food, what your store will, what kind of products your store will offer. If you already know, if you have a pro forma and a market study, you know you're going to be a larger store, that you're going to have service deli, talk about that deli that says grocery store. Talk about the jobs that you'll create as a grocery store. And also what you're communicating in this core message is that you guys are the real deal. While you're a co-op with a strong vision and commitment to community, you're going to accomplish your ends through a serious business that should be taken seriously. So, and then there's kind of this bonus core message, which is mostly in my mind, there really is only 3 to 4 core messages, but there is, what's the top one right now? What's the thing we really need to communicate the most? And we're going to come back to that idea a little later. So first tool number 1, what are your 3 to 4 max core messages? And every message that we communicate from here on out as a startup should go back to one of these. So as an example, in my co-op, when I was running, I was the general manager of Common Ground Food Co-op up until last year, and we would have messaging meetings, and I'm very, very passionate about fair trade. And so I would find if I was in charge of social media that week or putting out an article, fair trade would get mentioned an awful lot. And it was pointed out to me by my team, well, that's awesome, fair trade is awesome. And it does align maybe with our ends. You see our ends over here, our vision. It's kind of, it's kind of a stretch. It's not a core thing we need to say about our mission, and in some ways it can distract if we talk about it too much. We want to check every message and make sure that it goes back to one of these core messages, every article in the newsletter, that it goes back to one of these core messages in a very clear, direct way. So maybe if you do a bio on a local farm who has become an owner of your co-op, and part of your vision is that you're going to support the local food shed like it is for us, there's a clear connection. That's why we're communicating. This is one of our core messages, our connection to farmers, the importance of local farming. So we're going to talk about that a little more, but this is our first tool, your core messages. Our second tool is going to be looking at who our stakeholders are. Now, stakeholders are who are we talking to? Not only who are we talking to, but who has an investment in the well-being of the co-op? Who has a stake in this? So for a startup, your stakeholders are your owners, the early founding seed owners, as well as your longtime owners, as well as your brand new owners. Potential owners, which is everyone in your community, especially those who are in the next tier of who you're trying to reach out to. So if you're about 400 owners in and you have all those early adopters and visionaries who've become owners, and now you're trying to talk to people who are interested in your vision but maybe a little less involved with the food movement, you're especially trying to talk right now to that part of the potential owners or broader community. And then we have farmer vendors. You may not be planning to have a store open for 2, maybe 3 years, but farmer vendors are already major stakeholders in your co-op. The future of what you do will affect their community. So farmers you already work with, who are owners in your co-op, but also farmers producers who hope to work with someday, and farmers producers who are not even yet in business, but are considering it and watching the co-op and thinking about the co-op's future as maybe an impetus to become or become actively involved in the business of producing food or farming. So that's actually one of your core stakeholder groups that you are messaging to, are farmers and vendors, from ones who've already bought shares to ones who may not even started their farm yet, who are in your community. Next set of stakeholders for you is your community partners. This is local businesses that have already partnered with your co-op, local businesses that haven't yet, nonprofits, schools, and your local press. These are people in the community who have a stake in how you're going to do, and that their hope is that your growth will affect positive change in their organizations, or maybe they don't even realize yet that you're a potential partner in the community, that the co-op is going to have this amazing effect also upon them, and we're working on building relationships with them to strengthen our co-op. And then our messaging also goes out to one last group, which is investors and officials. So everything you message and share about your startup is visible to and being paid attention to by local banks, cooperative lenders you may work with in the future. Believe me, they follow the social media of startups all the time. I'm kind of amazed sometimes how much they know about all the startups. Anything you get in the press, they've probably read it. City officials, county officials, even state representatives are sometimes paying attention to your messages, or if they aren't yet, as you grow and become more obviously successful, they will go back and look at those messages. And those messages will tell them something about your co-op. And then the health department even. Think about when you're sending out messages about your events, if you're going to sell food and you haven't been talking to the health department, they're paying attention. So our stakeholders is everyone we're communicating to that we want to get the right message about who our co-op is, what it's trying to accomplish, and what it might do in partnership with them. So that was tool number 2. Part number 3 to messaging is our vehicles. Where can we communicate our messages to our stakeholders? So we've created our core messages. We know who we're trying to talk to. Now, where do we do it? Well, the obvious ones for a startup are your newsletter, social media, co-op events. Your tabling display communicates a lot. Presentations you make in the community, pamphlets, owner email, direct email, and your website. But there's also a bunch of other things that actually communicate your message all the time. Giveaways. If you do giveaways to get people to become owners, what you give away communicates a lot about your co-op. We find that giveaways that are from local businesses or about food or sustainability, like bikes and rain barrels, communicate a lot about your vision and attract a lot of people because they're attracted to your vision because of food, sustainability, and local. And you're communicating to local businesses about what kind of partner you are. If you really do a good job of promoting their giveaway and the biz that they gave you and making people aware of their business, that tells them about what kind of partner a co-op is going to be in the community. It's a message. Sponsoring events, what events you sponsor tells a lot about your core message of what your vision is. Your volunteer appearance. People don't usually think of this one, We'll actually show an example soon, so I'm not going to go too in depth on this one, but actually how your volunteers appear at events sends a message about your co-op, your store, what location you pick. If you probably know, you're thinking about this all the time. Where is my store going to be? The neighborhood you pick, where it is, what it's connected to, will say a lot about who your co-op is. It is a message to the community. Tabling, what events you choose to table at, not just your display, but which ones you choose to participate in, what parts of the community, where you get involved in events, whether it's a health event at a large employer, or if it's a tiny new startup farmers market, they communicate about who your co-op is when you participate in them. All potential owner interactions, every single interaction you have with an owner as a board member or a volunteer, it communicates, it messages to owners, classes, press coverage, press releases, branded product, your t-shirts, your yard signs, donations maybe your organization makes. Some co-ops do make donations or do fundraising for different charities in their community connected to food before they're even open. Partnerships with local orgs, who you choose to partner with, again, is a message to the community. Your signage and your local business, if you do local business partner benefits, we talked about with the giveaways, those also communicate about who you are. So we've got, go to the next slide. We've got, we're going to get some examples here. Remember, number 1 is our core messages. Number 2 was who we're messaging to, our stakeholders. And number 3 are our vehicles. So let's look at what core messages are being communicated here by a tabling event by Green Top Grocery. This is a startup in Normal, Illinois, who's in stage 3 development right now. They have a site. And what are they communicating? So first of all, they're communicating, in my mind, that we're the real deal. Remember, this is one of our grocery store messages. We're going to be a serious grocery store business. How are they communicating that in this display? The volunteer is wearing a branded co-op t-shirt. I know some groups love their branded t-shirts. Some groups are like, oh, we don't need those. But when you have a professionally done logo that shows, look, this is our brand, this is who we are, and our staff and our volunteers wear it, that communicates a professionalism and that you're a real solid thing and successful. So she's saying, here, look, we have all our volunteers wearing our t-shirts. We're showing them who we represent and that we're ready to ask questions. So we're on top of this. We're ready to go. We're labeled. Come talk to us. Another core message they're communicating. They're communicating, remember, that we're building a store. The building store core message is actually represented here by a large poster of, in their case, the location that they're going to be located in. So this shows, this is the building where we're going to be. See, this is the real thing, the real deal. And that poster says that right away. As I'm walking past that, thinking, oh, I've heard about that food court thing. Oh, wait, that's a map. That map says, we're building a store, the real thing. And then the other thing they're communicating is their mission. They're saying, we're about local. How are they saying that? I don't see the word local anywhere on their display. Wait a minute. Well, they're saying that by where they've chosen to table. Remember, that vehicle communicates. The vehicle in this case is that they're tabling in a beloved, locally owned business, and they believe in the co-op, and this business believes in the co-op enough that they have invited them into their business to actually talk to their customers, which is a risk for any business. So this shows this business really believes in that. So the overall message is one of approachability and solidity. This is really going to happen. Look how well we're branded. Everything fits together and looks like us. We have our act together. And then only possible missed opportunity, no images of produce or actual grocery stores. This is something we often see with tabling, is that you have a lovely logo and lots of information, but nothing that just screams from the start, it's going to be a grocery store. Just pictures of produce in the background or of a produce department from a grocery store. But overall, a phenomenal job. They have lots of things here that people can take home. They have little flyers up in the front, you'll see, that connect people to another one of their vehicles, their social media. Here's how to get a hold of us by social media. And they actually have, in the little red basket there, branded temporary tattoos for kids or adults who want to take something with them that is branded and say, yeah, I'm part of the co-op, another way they communicate. So let's look at a second. So again, those are the stakeholders we're talking to here. We're talking to potential owners. Clearly, we're out in public where people can reach us, but we're talking to our owners too. We have a timeline right here out in the middle of our display showing what's coming next and what we're working on that talks to owners about their project. Interestingly, they're also talking to the officials, the stakeholders that are actual officials, in this case, of the landlord. If you see this beautiful professional design of the layout of where their store will be, and that it has the name of the development project, in this case called the Foundry, they're going to be involved in, and actually has the name of developer underneath. So it's showing the landlord they appreciate the relationship and are doing a professional job of representing their projects. Well done. And then the community in general is being reached out to by holding this in a local business. This doesn't communicate much to farmers and vendors, and that's okay. One thing you want to keep in mind when you're looking at who are we communicating to right now. I often see groups, and I'm excited, who will look at their messaging and go, oh, who did we communicate to? Oh, we communicated this group and this group and this group. You want to have a primary group you're trying to communicate to, which I would say in this case is potential owners. It's good to have secondary groups you're communicating well to in the same time, but you don't have to communicate to absolutely everyone all at once. So it's okay. This event didn't necessarily communicate to farmers and vendors, look, we're going to support local and we're looking forward to working with you. That's all right. They'll get other opportunities to communicate that. Not every message you send out needs to communicate to all of your stakeholders at once. Okay, another example. And I'm not gonna go over this one right now. This will be in the follow-up slide. So the actual look at every single vehicle they used in this event. So well done. They used swag, they used posters, they used handouts. Then they used volunteer appearance. Going back to this, if your volunteers look excited to talk to you because they're knowledgeable, they're confident, and they're smiling, that says a whole lot about building community and how much enthusiasm there is behind your project, that you could get volunteers to feel that confident and excited to participate. It's sitting around waiting for someone to come talk to them, which cannot always be fun. So it communicates a lot about your co-op and the enthusiasm of your owners when your volunteers look prepared, ready, and are smiling. Another example of messaging, this is actually a post. This is a social media Facebook post. And what they've done here is, this is Cedar Falls Food Co-op in Cedar Falls, Iowa, and they are trying to get a grant. And this is a participation grant, or they need to get people to vote for them. So which stakeholders are they communicating to? They're communicating to owners. Here's a way you can help, something easy you can do. Your participation matters. We're always trying to find ways to tell owners their participation matters. And get them involved. This is a really easy, low-hanging fruit way to get them involved. They just have to click and vote. Officials and lenders, hey, we're communicating to you that we're actively pursuing many forms of financing for our project, and we're go-getters and we're going after grants. Lenders and officials in your community will love to see that. Potential owners, what are we saying to them? Hey guys, look how much support we have. We're in second place in this thing. Isn't this fun, easy to do, exciting? Do you want to join too? Come on, click. So it's a really fun, easy way to communicate to potential owners, hey, you could participate too and give us a hand. Isn't this fun? So many people are doing this. Other great points, there's a friendly face. We may not know who Melanie is, but they posted her name. I know her name is Melanie, and we know that adding a human face to any image, ad, message grabs the eyes, increases reads, and increases the sense of contact with the message. Nicely done. And the screen image, here's what we're talking about. And so they're actually showing you the screen. We want you to go to this thing and click this right there. Wow, making it really easy for me to participate. Nice. Missed opportunity, only a small one. Can you place it? Can you go ahead and click? There's another image that's going to show up. Okay, I guess it's not going to pop up. Oh, and another one. So always find a way to include your logo or brand. This is a great post, but nowhere is this branded as Cedar. So I might be looking through my feed on Facebook, and, oh, cool picture, but it doesn't immediately say Cedar Falls Food Co-op. So if we click one more time, you'll see I just stuck their logo up in the corner of this photo. Ta-da! That's the only thing that could have made this social media post message even better. But nice job, Cedar Falls. All right. So messaging is an active act. So you can think through, what are our core messages? Who are our stakeholders, and what are our vehicles? And if you even do just that work with your outreach group or your outreach group and your board, you're ahead of the game. That you guys have really thought through those three core pieces of how we message who the co-op is to the world. But take it to the next level, messaging meetings. It can and should be easy, fast, and effective to run a messaging meeting. You guys can do it. How often should we hold them? Monthly minimum. And monthly often works for Startup Food Co-op. If you're about to launch an owner funding campaign, if you're about to something like that, something where you need a lot of owner participation, you might need to have them more often. During an active owner campaign and just before one, you'll often have them weekly. How long do these meetings need to last? I would say never more than 30 minutes. The important thing is to have them, to get the top ideas to the top, to get you all agreeing on the same page about what we're communicating, what's most important to communicate this month. Let's do it quick so we do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be everyone has a chance to give their extemporaneous speech on what they think we should do this week. This is fast, quick, and dirty, okay? So 30 minutes, but we make sure we do it every month. Who? In a stage 1 co-op, this is usually run by your steering committee. Once you're in stage 2 and have an elected board, you can transition this responsibility for running the messaging meetings to outreach, to your ownership team. Everyone has slightly different names and different tasks assigned to committees, or to your communication team. And everyone can play. I would encourage whoever's running your messaging meeting, steering committee, board, outreach, that you let people know you're having it, maybe as part of your board meeting or as part of your outreach meeting this month, and that everyone is welcome to come and participate. How do you do it? Start on time, no matter what, with whoever is there. And we're going to review, we're going to make core message choices, we're going to build the plan, go over the action items, and break. All right, so let's look at what a meeting would actually look like. Okay, so before you start the meeting, start on time no matter what. Just get going. Others can filter in and join. These are the kind of meetings where wherever you jump in, you can participate well, as long as you know the rules of the game. Just get started if there's 2 of you there or 10 of you. Assign a note taker. They will need to take the note. They need to get the notes out to all participants within 24 hours. We want to get those notes out. They want to be quick, bullet pointed, short, and we want to get them out to everyone fast so we all know what the message is and can use it. I don't want it a week later. We want it right away. Facilitator. This is the only meeting prep you have to do. We do need to assign a facilitator beforehand, and that facilitator is responsible for one piece of meeting prep. Bring the notes from the last meeting. We'll be using them. So make sure you bring the notes from the last meeting and you have a timepiece. That's it. Watch the time. The facilitator needs to have a timepiece stopwatch, whatever you want to use to follow the time, and it's not personal. Truly, staying on time is the most important thing. We're going to move fast. No one's going to get into the weeds. The best way to make these meetings effective is to have them regularly and stick to the time allotted. All right, let's dig in. First thing we're going to do, we're going to review. You got 7 minutes on the clock. Notice that down on the left. I put estimated amounts of time. And do these work? Yes, I have actually run these with mature co-ops and startups. They do work. Take some time, but you'll get there. 7 minutes. Last month's top messages, what were they? What were the top 3? And what were the sub-messages? So let's just remember what our messages were last month. Great, 1 minute. Last month's action plan. Check in. Did all the items on last month's action item plan happen? It isn't time for guilt or lectures or, oh, I didn't get it done because of this and I'm really sorry. No, that's not what we're here for. Let's just review what did or didn't get done so we know which ones we can talk about how they went. That's all. If there's a consistent problem with somebody not getting tasks done that they committed to for messaging, that's a responsibility of a committee head or a board member to talk to them about that. But that's not something we talk about in the meeting. We're just going to keep going. So last month's top messages, what were was the action plan for last month? Did those things get done? Check, check, check. And how did it go? What didn't work? You've got 1 minute. Which things that you tried for messaging last month kind of went flat or you guys don't think you want to try again? Note those real quick. Take notes. So this is what didn't go so great. And then what did go well? What was memorable? Record bullet points about that. Oh, you know, we didn't see it coming, but this tabling we did at X event, we weren't expecting anything, and it was awesome, and we think it was because of this. So check in about those things. Capture a little bit of knowledge about what you accomplished last month. All right, we're done with review. Now let's move on to Horizon. Real quick, you got 3 whole minutes for this. What big events are on the calendar for the next 3 months for our co-op? So it could be big events or milestones you're expecting, like you're expecting a site announcement. That's important. Just jot that down. What smaller events are on the calendar for this month that we don't want to forget about in our messaging? Jot those down. Milestones, again, what stage of development are we in right now? Let's remind ourselves. And what is our next big milestone for the project? Might be happening this month, it might be down the road, but we need to know what is the next big milestone. It's the announcement of our site, the first owner meeting, the general manager getting hired. Know what it is. Keep these in mind. Let's move ahead to core messaging. All right, so we've spent 10 minutes reviewing last month and going over big milestones and looking at the horizon ahead of us. Now we've got 10 minutes on the clock for core messaging. Keeping key events and milestones in mind, what do we need to communicate most this month? Review each core message category, no more than 3 things in each category, and aim for 2 when you can. Sometimes there'll only be 1 thing you really want to get across in each core message for the month. So, END's mission. What are the owners and community confused about? What part of our mission is most exciting right now in getting a response? Or what part haven't we communicated about lately? Startups are tempted usually to talk about whichever piece we haven't talked about lately, but it is really more important to talk about anything you're hearing confusion about from the community, or the desire for clarification in your vision, or the piece that already excites them. That's the piece that's attracting people to your project. Let's message about that. So what about ownership? What's our next big ownership goal? What's going to be going on to drive ownership this month? Board, are we letting people in on what the board is working on? And are there important elections and owner participation things ahead this month? Building a store, what stage of development are we in? What's the next big thing? And where are we in our process? Those are questions to ask yourself when thinking about a core message or 2 for this month in that column. And if you're communicating about grocery store, consistent reminder that we're building a grocery store. You can't say it too much. Have you shown examples lately in your newsletter and your display tables and in your social media? And then our last question is going to be, what is our top message? We went through the 4 core categories. Doing that, looking at what's going on this month in each of those core message categories, what's the thing that we most need to get across this month? All right, let's look at an example. So this is a startup in stage 1 development. What are their top goals? Right now, they're trying to set a strong foundation of understanding about what a food co-op is, that it takes time, and that we'll invest as a community in finding out if we're a good candidate for a co-op, that we're going into feasibility. So in END's mission, they said, well, we have a mission statement. We need to get the word out about it. A lot of people just don't know we have this exciting mission statement we worked hard on. It really talks about who we are. Let's link to it and we only post things and talk about things that illustrate that mission. Ownership. We're going to be launching our ownership campaign for the first time ever next month. Woo! Join early, be a visionary, be a founding owner. This group has chosen to have a founding owner category, the first 100 owners, to get people excited. So let's make sure we communicate about that. Building a store. What are we doing about that right now? Well, the thing we can mostly tell people when we're really early in development is that there is a tested model to success for starting a food co-op, and we're following it. It takes years to build a successful co-op. It has never taken anyone less than 2 years to build a successful startup, so it will be multiple years, but it yields huge successes and impacts. So start talking now about how this is a project we're in together for multiple years. That's part of their building the store message at this point. And grocery store. We will be building a grocery store together. We're going to show some examples and pictures. But our #1 top message this month is Founding Owner Drive starts next month. So that's going to be the one we want to message the most. We have an example here for a stage 2A co-op as well on our next slide. Okay, and if you have any questions, sorry, if you have any questions, remember you're sending them to info@fci.coop. I will get to them, or give us a call. This is an example for a stage 2A co-op, and this is going to be in the slides. I'm not going to go too deep into this. We have some time for questions today, but these are some of the core messages developed by a group that's in 2A development. They're really working on getting to 300 owners for a market study, and you can look through their examples in the PDF that will be on our website. And then we also have an example for a stage 2B co-op. And this one, their message is starting to change. Their top goal right now is that they need to wrap up their owner loan campaign. And you'll see some different things they're communicating under the core messages here is a stage 2B co-op. Again, you can look at these in more depth on our website. Okay, and then stage 3. We're trying to finish our owner loan drive so we can break ground. That's what it boiled down to. What's interesting when you're running this process is go through each category of core message, and by the time you get to the end, whether you use the first 3 or all 4 of those, it'll be pretty obvious which one's the most important message. They're all messages you're going to work on this month, but what's the one top message we want to make sure every volunteer, every board member, everyone knows that this is this is the most important thing to communicate this month. It'll become obvious in that 10-minute process of going through the different core messages and looking what's going on in each of those messages this month. All right, next slide. All right, so we've spent 20 minutes so far, and now it's pie time. Hurrah! Not real pie, although you're welcome to bring pie to your messaging meetings. You'll get more turnout. What we're doing with pie time real fast is just another way to look at messaging together. All it takes is a circle and a pen. So you're going to have a circle, and you're going to look at where do we want to put the most focus this month. Which of the core messages, again, is going to get the most attention and how much? If you have a whiteboard to do this, this is awesome. Sometimes I just hand everyone a piece of paper and have everyone draw their own pie for just a minute. Like, where do you think we should focus on those core messages we just came up with? Everyone holds it up. We compare notes and go, oh, okay, it seems obvious. We really need, we all agree, maybe differing amounts, but we need to focus on build the store this month. And this is important. Sometimes the grocery store message is going to be real minimal. You're going to make sure you mention it this month, but you don't have to put a lot of time into it. But maybe you need to put a ton of time into growing ownership. Ownership is where we need to talk about right now. We talk about that more than the project or our mission. And you need to know that. But remember, every message this month is going to hit one of these four. But we want to try and look at which of these. It's just another visual way to look at which of these do we need to most focus on right now. Where's the emphasis? And we have just another quick example where it could be very different, the balance. Where it's building the store is the big communication message this month. And for us, it's that owner loan starts this week. Oh, boy. When owner loan's starting, that is definitely going to be more than 50% of your pie, and that's how it should be. These pieces of the pie will shift, grow, shrink, and that's normal. And this is just a visual way to look at that as a group and say, where do we really need to focus now amongst these core messages that we've pulled out? All right. So next, last piece, action items. Now we're almost done with our meeting. Which vehicles? Go over the list of vehicles and which will you use to communicate these core messages that you've decided to focus on this month. Assign. Who will turn core messages into social media? Who is going to be in charge of making sure the newsletter contains that farmer feature we said was really important to communicate our vision this month? Assign this stuff to subcommittees and committees whenever possible. The idea isn't to say, oh, John from the communication committee will do this, unless John's there and says he will, but it's to say, communication, you've got this. Ownership, you've got this. Board, you've got this. And that'll be in the notes. These groups are in charge of these things. Now, when you're a steering committee, it's all you, right? You might want to get it down to actual names when you're in that early stage of development. But the idea is quickly assign and let those groups take responsibility to moving those things forward. Because remember, they're going to get the notes within 24 hours, so they know what they need to do. And then you might want to review and say, did we need the less obvious vehicles that we can add in? They didn't come to our mind. You have social media, newsletter, that's all really obvious, but is it time to add branded t-shirts? Should we get to work on that? It's one of those less obvious vehicles for messaging. And then review your stakeholders real quick. Which stakeholders most need to hear each of the core messages? And can you reach out to more than one stakeholder through a message? So if you involve a local business in doing a giveaway to grow ownership, the #1 message is to potential owners. Secondarily, it's to existing owners saying, hey, recommend people, help your friends become owners. But the third person you're messaging to is that local business community, by how well you treat that local business's contribution. So just think through all your stakeholders and your messages and who you don't want to miss. And if you're not talking in any of your core messages this month to a certain group of stakeholders, maybe you need to find a way to do so. So, okay. And so if you have a question on this topic, again, email us now at info@ci.coop or give us a call. Now we're going to look at a quick example. This is an example plan of action items. This is a stage 2B development group. So right now, ownership and outreach is going to take on the owner goal sign. We've already got this owner thermometer that we use at events, but we want to add a sign that says what our next current goal is to accomplish what. Good idea. All right, ownership, you're in charge of that. Owner meet and greets. We want to bring grocery store pick display to these and set these up. We have these grocery store picks that are for the display, but we haven't been bringing them to the owner meet and greets. Let's add that. We want to communicate grocery at our meet and greets. Great. Communication. hey, social media this month, make sure we are communicate our core messages, and here they are. You're in charge of making that work. Newsletters, we want to attract more farmer owners right now, so please do that highlight on the Smith Farm and a blurb about how you can contact us to become a featured farmer. And steps like that. You can read through this here, but they've gone through each work group and said what action items from the core messages to communicate to our stakeholders through the vehicles do we need to assign for this month. And they're quick and dirty assignments. The group is in charge of interpreting them and getting them done to the best of their ability. 100% of all the tasks assigned getting done is not very common. It doesn't happen all the time. But if you're getting even 75% done by the time you get to the next meeting, and you all had a clear sense as an organization of what you were messaging and what you were communicating, you're doing some phenomenal work. All right. So again, real quick, those messaging meetings. Review. Look at the horizon. Talk about the core messages. Divvy up the pie. Some people will skip this, but please don't. That visual exercise and that chance to even draw helps a lot of people's minds open up and really see the big picture, and it's fun. Action. What are the action items? And break. 30 minutes, we're done. Get those digital notes out and make sure they go out to all committees, board, steering committee members, and boards. All right. So quick takeaways. If you take nothing else away from this today, number one is the low-hanging fruit, just to review the 3 parts of messaging and how they work with your board and your outreach ownership committees, whatever you guys call that. Even just doing this is truly going to improve your co-op's messaging work and give it context. So even if you guys just review this, this PowerPoint together and go over what those 3 core things are, you're ahead of the game and you'll be doing better messaging. But number 2, let's take it to the silver level. You can build a messaging cheat sheet. You can request an example from me. I have an example version. Just email me at jacqueline@fci.coop or make your own with your co-op's core messages, stakeholders, and vehicles all on one sheet of paper. Review it off and just laminate it. Give out copies to everyone, all core volunteers in your outreach ownership committees, to your board members, and bring them out. When you're talking about something, wait, does this speak to our core messages? Do we really need to spend time on figuring out how we're going to communicate this? Are we on message? Who are we talking to right now? Which of our stakeholders? Reviewing that sheet and bringing it out during meetings and remembering to go back to our messaging language and pay attention to who our stakeholders are and what our core messages are will improve the level of your communication within your team and improve your messaging, even if that's just as much as you take it to. But if we're going to go for gold, let's hold those monthly messaging meetings for your co-op and watch the way they will build clarity and momentum, because they do. They're really phenomenal to see it work. All right, so we're going to jump into, again, those are your 3 pieces of messaging. You're going to hear it over and over from me. And we're going to jump into, let's try our next slide. We're going to jump into Q&A. So again, you can see at the bottom, please email me at, or actually you're emailing Mary from our team at info@fci.coop, or give Mary a call at 844-324-2667. And I already see I have a list of questions over here, so I'll get started. I am going to go, actually go up, there's so many. All right, so it almost sounds like we should do the core message work before we even start to talk to community members, so our message is right. Can this evolve as we build membership, or should it happen early? Awesome question. This can start anytime you're ready to start it. If you start with clarity on what messaging is and who your stakeholders are and so forth, from day one of forming your co-op, then you're ahead of the game, and that's terrific. But I don't care if you're even a stage 3 co-op that's going to open its doors the next 6 months, you can start using these tools now and putting them to work and seeing improvement wherever you are, however much you have time to start with messaging. Again, remember that we had our bronze, silver, and gold levels of participation in messaging tools. Any of that is going to start and help. Start where you are with what time and energy you have now, and you can build. Question, can future vendors also be members and have a vote? Oh, this will depend on your bylaws. Usually the only conflict with a future vendor is serving on the board. Some boards don't allow that because they see it as a conflict of interest. That'll be in your bylaws. Check them out. But certainly, future vendors can definitely be owners of the co-op and vote at your co-op. Absolutely. That is usually never a problem. If you want to talk about that more in depth, you can email us or call us. Next question. What if something changes? Like we thought we had a site, but it fell through. How do we put a positive spin on the delay and setback? Ooh, that's a deep one. I'd be happy to talk to you in person, give me a call, and maybe sometime we should talk about messaging failure, quote-unquote failure, because setbacks are a normal part of co-op development. They happen to every startup. Some even the ones that seem to have like all the luck in the world, they will eventually hit some decent-sized setbacks. They have to figure out how to message to their community. It's a normal part of being a startup. First thing to know is you're not alone. It can be done, and that you shouldn't feel bad about it. It's simply part of the development experience. But let's talk more in person. Give me a call or an email, and we can talk about how you do that. It's a little beyond the scope of what I'm covering today, but I like the idea of the topic of messaging setbacks. We'll talk about having that for a future webinar. I've got comments. Make sure your website, Facebook page, and event notices always give your city and state. People all over can access your info, but it needs to be clear to outsiders where you're planning to build this co-op. This is true. Very smart future co-op person. We see a lot of startups do not consistently put their city and state. They feel like everyone knows who they are and what they're talking about, and quite often even new members of your community who are looking for a food co-op don't realize you're in their community when they look it up and they can't find the name of the city. So please, it's an important part of your message. Where are you located? Who are you serving? Are you serving your city? Are you serving your county? Are you serving a valley region? Make sure you put on there where you're serving and where you're located. Question, our local newspaper wants to do a story about our co-op. How can we control or steer the message in the final article? There are things you can do to make sure you're well prepared and that they do a good job, and there are things you can't control. We have seen startups that have actually had struggles with newspapers who have been outright antagonistic. Luckily, that's rare. Usually, they're excited to cover you. One of the best things you can do to control that message is have a fact sheet that you give to them when they interview you. This would be core information about your co-op you want to communicate. How many owners we have, development model we're using, who's on our board, anything you want them to definitely know about you and get across. Another thing you can provide is the media is very busy. If you can provide them with some great quotes already, like maybe one from an owner about why I'm excited being involved, one from a board member why they believe in the model they're using to develop their co-op, maybe 3 maximum quotes, really good ones, in quotes already with who they're attributed to, and have that be part of your fact sheet. They will often use those, and that will set the tone for the article. So you have the opportunity through how you create that fact and quote sheet that you're going to have ready when you meet with them, or that you're even just going to have ready to email out the minute a random media person calls. If you have that, that's a way you can set the tone. So having that fact sheet, that can be part of your messaging, one of your vehicles that I didn't actually put in there. Question, your examples have lovely logo and swag, but we can't afford that yet. What should we invest in first in our messaging costs? Effective messaging can be done through newsletters and social media, very cheap, but the thing that you can't fake is a really good brand, a really good logo or visual brand. So look for talent in your community that's willing to donate it, but don't look for just any student. You might allow students to submit ideas and pick, but even though you don't have money, don't be willing to just take whatever gets handed your way. Why not go to a couple of professional graphic designers who are respected in your community and ask them if they'd be willing to do pro bono work for your co-op? Some of them will be. Some of them will be willing to do it half price. Or there is an option through CDS Consulting. If you want to call Nicole Klemick there. She does store design. She also does branding and logoing, and she has a very affordable logo package for startups specifically that you might actually be able to afford. And once you have that logo, a professional logo package, which will show your logo in different sizes, shapes, and color configurations, and will show you what your fonts are going to be and so forth, you can get a lot done that looks very professional. So that's the core thing. Let's get that professional logo package together. All right, we got another thought from a viewer. Keep your websites and social media pages current. Yeah, we didn't have a lot of time to go over this today, but a final thought. What you don't do also communicates. So if your website's not up to date, you're actually communicating that you're not getting anything done. It happens all the time. I have people call me at FCI, a food competition, and say, is the startup in my community still doing stuff? Because they haven't posted to their social media in a month, and their website hasn't changed. This often happens through the holidays, especially, where we'll see no updates. When you don't message, when you don't communicate, you're still messaging. You are messaging to your community that we're not active and there isn't momentum. So make sure you're aware of what you're not messaging as well. And this goes for stakeholders. Like if you're not bigging up your local farms and talking about how you're going to serve them or showing off the local farms that have become owners, you're communicating about how important farms are or aren't to your startup. So it's not a bad on you, you did something wrong. It's, you just have to be aware still, though, that when you don't find time to do these things, you're also sending messages, and keep that in mind. Or when you don't think about the stakeholders of, the banks or the health department, there may be ramifications when that stakeholder doesn't feel like they were kept in the loop or respected. So keep in mind what you're not doing and how that affects the message of your co-op. All right, well, I think we got through all of them. That was quite a list of questions and comments. Thanks, everyone. Really enjoyed your participation. This has been Messaging 101 with Food Co-op Initiative. We are going to have the PDF of these slides up on our website later today. You can look for that in our resources section. And again, if you have any follow-up comments, questions, or would like to discuss any of these topics in more depth, email us at info@fci.coop or give us a call at 844-324-2667. Next month, in March 2016, we'll be back with our webinar on seed grants, the $10,000 grants that we make annually to startup food co-ops all over the nation. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll see you then.